Now, the DRC, it's battling its deadliest Ebola outbreak with no approved vaccine to stop the rapidly spreading virus. But the WHO says it can still be contained in the next 3 months with the right resources and community action. Now, the Ebola outbreak was officially declared in mid-May, with the Ituri province in northeastern DRC accounting for 90% of confirmed cases. Since then, the virus has spread to 5 other provinces, including North Kivu, South Kivu, Hotwele, Chopo, and Bauzele, where a case was confirmed just this month. Now, Uganda has recorded 20 cases, with most of them coming across the border from the DRC. But the country officially declared an end to its outbreak on 28th July. Now, WHO says the Ebola outbreak is killing somehow every 30 minutes, and it's been particularly difficult to contain its latest Ebola outbreak in eastern DRC due to delayed detection, armed conflict, lack of vaccines, a nomadic workforce, and cross-border movements. Now, health teams also face major challenges in tracing people who may have been exposed to infected patients.
We have observed that patients are still remaining within the community, and this is a factor that promotes the spread of the disease. And community deaths are also being recorded. It is these factors that would explain the increase in cases and deaths over the past 3 or 4 weeks.
So health officials are now focusing on community-led action to scale up surveillance of suspected cases, bringing testing and treatment services closer to affected communities, counter misinformation by using local leaders and equip frontline health workers.
And for doing that, WHO has already added 100 additional expert epidemiologists who will be deployed at the field level, at the health zone levels, supported by almost more than 500 community health workers who will go to the communities, do the contact tracing and identify the cases, convince the people to accept to be followed up, and obviously giving all of them also the different means for transferring them into the health centers.
The community needs to be aware about the outbreak. They need to be involved in the response, and they need to know what the signs and symptoms are and what to do if they get sick. And this today is not happening in every single place where there are Ebola cases.
But there's a $45 million funding shortfall, money that's needed for life-saving operations and to stop local, regional, and global transmission. And a lot of community mistrust. Now, let's hear more on what can be done from Tariq Yasarevich. He is a spokesperson for the World Health Organization and joins me from Geneva. Thank you for joining us here on Africa Matters. The numbers can tell how serious the outbreak in the Eastern DRC is. But how concerned is the WHO and also the CDC when it comes to infections in the current DRC outbreak, and what can be done to contain it?
Well, we are very much concerned. This is the biggest Ebola outbreak that Democratic Republic of the Congo ever faced, with the number of newly infected people doubling in some of the hotspots on a daily basis. So we are behind the virus. We are trying to catch up with the transmission chains, but right now the outbreak is outpacing really the response. We need a major scale up in all elements to response if we are going to stabilize the situation.
All right. So what challenges are you facing as you speak, at the community level to prompt the shift to a community-led Ebola response? Because that is what the WHO is currently talking about.
Indeed, we know that community has to be at heart of the response. Response has different elements because for this particular virus, Bundibuja virus, there is currently no treatment and no vaccine. So we need to do usual public health measures to contain the transmission. So we need to know where the virus is. We need to know who is infected. We know who has been in contact with infected people. So we monitor their situation. We need to have laboratories. We need to have treatment centers. We need to do safe burials. For all of those traditional public health measures, we need community to take the leadership. If community is not trusting the response, if community is not engaged in all of those activities, that response cannot succeed. We really need trust of the community, full engagement of the community. But for that, we need to understand really what is the perception, how community sees this outbreak, and then we need to adapt our community engagement accordingly. Again, this response is led by the Ministry of Health of DRC. They have experience in dealing with the Ebola outbreak, and we really hope that we will get there at some point. But we really need to make sure that everyone in the community understands that those who are infected need to seek health care and not stay at home. Those who are identified as contacts should be monitored and avoid contact with other people if they get symptoms. We need to make sure that safe burials are being done in a way that people do not touch bodies that are suspected to die from Ebola. So all these elements are necessary.
All right. And it's good you've actually talked about the mistrust that's currently being witnessed or experienced in the DRC. Then you also have conflict, displacement, and the population movement. But practically speaking, WHO is talking about 3 months. This virus can be contained within 3 months when this community-led process is done. But practically, what does it look like?
Well, we have seen in previous outbreaks and previous Ebola outbreaks that people are afraid, and it's a human that people are afraid, and that people may not want to see their loved ones going to treatment centers because many people, unfortunately, do not come back from these treatment centers. We also know that people want to bury their loved ones in a traditional way. So quite often there has to be work done with the communities to explain them why it is so important to follow public health advice. And that's basically really working with the traditional leaders, with authorities, local authorities, with religious leaders, with community leaders, and make sure that everyone is on board. So really, and as you said, this is happening in a northeast part of Democratic Republic of Congo, province of Ituri, that is a main hotspot. There is a lot of insecurity. There is a lot of mobility of population. It's a mining area, so lots of movement of people, and that obviously is increasing the risk of spread. And now it has the outbreak has spread to 6 provinces in DRC. And again, we need community really to understand, so we don't see what we have seen previously, that people patients are leaving treatment centers, that health workers are being attacked sometimes, that health facilities have been attacked. So really, it is important to work with the community.
All right. And when one talks about the Ebola outbreak in northeastern province in the DRC, one cannot talk about it without mentioning the vaccine. Everyone is waiting for the vaccine. When will the vaccine come out? So what progress has been made in the clinical trials for the potential vaccine so far?
So just to explain to everyone, there is one Ebola licensed vaccine, but that's for the Ebola disease caused by another type of the virus. So for this particular virus, Bundibugyo virus causing Ebola disease, we do not have right now licensed vaccine nor treatment. There are a couple of vaccines that are at the very beginning of trials, so it will take time. We are now looking if existing Ebola vaccine that is efficient against another virus causing Ebola can offer some protection against this one. So we hope very much that would be the case, but it has to be proven yet. There are currently trials for 2 treatments, and we hope also that we will get some results. But again, this may take time. In the meantime, we need this painstaking public health measures and work to be done. And again, we've seen the images. Health workers are doing their best, and they work under very difficult conditions. Can you imagine just work within a treatment center in this sort of a protection equipment? It's very hot there, and then if health workers do not get support, and if they are then threatened and attacked by the community, obviously for them it will be even more difficult to work.
All right. Is there significant, funding gap, and how can you make up for this shortfall if you get the money that you don't need? Because it is a concern about funding, the shortfall being there.
So when it comes to funding, WHO and the African Center for Disease Control and Prevention launched a 6-month joint continental preparedness and response plan for the Ebola outbreak, with the overall funding of 518 million to support countries and partners to rapidly detect and respond to the outbreak. The overall plan is currently at 51%, so half of that plan has been funded. Now, for WHO itself, we had a 150 million requirement, and then we got majority of that fund. So money is important because money is basically providing laboratory services, helping to set up treatment centers. We are providing payments, obviously, for health workers. On top of their normal salary, they get some bonuses for working in a very difficult environment. We also need to get protective equipment. So money is important, and we really call on everyone. And we thank all the donors who already came forward so far to fund. But all of that can only succeed if we get everyone on the board, including and most essentially the community. So we are supporting really Ministry of Health in trying to understand what are the perceptions from the community and how we can address them and incorporate them in the response activities.
Right, Tariq Yassarevich, the spokesperson for the World Health Organization. Thank you for joining us here on Africa Matters. He was talking to us from Geneva. Still to come here on Africa Matters.
I am Palum David, reporting on how rising healthcare costs are forcing millions of Nigerians to delay treatment and turn to free medical outreach programs.
Staying with the community action theme, the World Health Organization is warning that about half of the world's population cannot access essential health services. In Nigeria, that translates to millions of people who cannot afford a simple doctor's visit, let alone emergency care. Now, for many, free community health programs are the only lifeline. Palum David reports from Abuja.
For years, Ruth Peters struggled with deteriorating eyesight, affecting a basic part of her daily life. A community health program in Abuja finally gave her a chance to have her eyes tested and treated.
I didn't have money to go to hospital, and I now decided to say, okay, let me come, because they said they are doing outreach for eyes, and I'll say, okay, let me come and check my eyes. And so, okay, I got the drugs and I got the eyeglass.
Ruth is one of about 750 patients treated through the program organized by the Yomi Fatimehi Foundation this year. Charities, faith-based organizations, and community groups are helping to fill some of the gaps in Nigeria's healthcare system.
I think the government should look into that direction, providing health insurances, particularly for the aged. As much as the government is trying, I will personally appeal to the citizenry that in whatever capacity that the Lord has helped us, we cannot leave everything to government. You can play your own part, I'll play my own part.
The government says it is expanding health insurance and strengthening primary health care to reduce the amount Nigerians pay for treatment. But until these reforms reach more people, free medical outreach programs will remain a lifeline for those who cannot afford hospital care. The World Bank estimates that about 139 million Nigerians live on less than $4 a day, putting treatments beyond the reach of many households. At another program organized by the House of Glory Nation Church, doctors say many patients seek medical attention only after their conditions get worse.
What's common is the fact that malaria is there. We have young children who are having diarrhea. And then we have a couple of elderly people who have either hypertension or diabetes. And unfortunately, those with hypertension, they're not controlling well simply because they cannot afford to buy the drugs.
For many patients, a diagnosis brings another challenge, paying for the medication needed to manage their conditions.
We're tired. Please, I beg the government to reduce the price of medicine so that we can live long.
For patients like Joda, these programs offer temporary relief, but they can't replace an accessible healthcare system. Palum David, Africa Matters, Abuja.
We stay in Nigeria, where campaigns have kicked off. Now, 5 months ahead of the elections, President Bola Tinubu's economic reforms have won praise from global investors. But ordinary Nigerians say they're struggling to cope with soaring petrol prices and rising food costs. Bahar Uyghur explains.
Grace Adama works as a health NGO worker in Abuja, Nigeria's capital. Even though her salary is double the country's minimum wage of $99, she says she's been forced to downsize and borrow to meet her basic needs.
If you see the cost of living, house, electricity, everything has gone up. Even the house I was staying before, I couldn't afford it because of the cost of living.
President Bola Tinubu took power 3 years ago and introduced reforms, including fuel and electricity subsidy cuts. Petrol prices jumped sixfold after the removal of the subsidy, compounded by a weakening naira and surging global oil prices, causing what Nigerians are calling T-pain. PricewaterhouseCoopers' latest data shows that over 60% of Nigerians can't afford to spend more than $2 per person a day. But some investors are hopeful that things could change.
If these policies persist, inflation is going to come down, interest rates are going to come down. The nature of investment is going to shift from shorter-term instruments to longer-term instruments. So we would go from bills to bonds, but there'll also be more fixed investment. So that means more job opportunities in Nigeria. That means more growth in Nigeria. And the inflation story, which has been playing out, will be something of the past.
Tinubu's government says reforms are bearing fruit, pointing to the Nigerian stock exchange that's gone up to 60% this year. Foreign investments hit a 6-year high of $23 billion last year, and the opening of the 650,000 barrel per day Dangote oil refinery in the country has boosted oil production. But second-hand car seller Isti Ifeanyi says that things have not changed.
There is no light, the roads are bad, a lot of things are going wrong, and you're still telling us that things will get better.
Most Nigerians are still wondering if any of the economic reforms will actually pay off for them and make life more affordable. Bahar Uyghur, Africa Matters.
To Somalia next, which has been taking major steps towards rebuilding its maritime sector. For the first time in over 30 years, the country registered its own ocean-going vessel in April. Weeks later, the country launched its first direct shipping link between Mogadishu and Istanbul that could not only cut costs but also boost trade. Mohammed Kahir has more from the capital.
6,000 kilometers of ocean cut in half. That is what a new direct maritime link connecting Turkey and Somalia twice a month is promising exporters like Abdelkader Ali Jama, who ships sesame and lemons to Istanbul.
Going forward, we hope that our customers, our company, and other businesses involved in import and export services will continue to benefit from an even more efficient process.
For years, cargo heading to Mogadishu took up to 50 days, often detouring through the United Arab Emirates. It's now taken half the time. Through Turkish shipping giant Akon Lines, Mogadishu port is now being integrated into an extensive maritime trade network stretching across Europe, the Mediterranean, North Africa, the Gulf, India and China.
It will strengthen the relation between Somali and Turkish businessmen, the economy, so I think it will give a big advantage to both parties in terms of the commercial relationship.
The trade volume between Somalia and Turkey is currently estimated at about $350 million. But with these new direct shipping links, trade is expected to increase.
It's a huge steps for developing bilateral trade.
Somalia officially registered its first ocean-going ship in more than 30 years in April. The registry is being run by a Turkish company, with the government saying it hopes to encourage more ships to raise the Somali flag.
Every step that contributes to economic growth is part of the agreement we signed in 2024. The launch of this direct shipping service is a major achievement for the people and the government of Somalia, as well as the business communities of both countries.
Mogadishu Port, which is Somalia's largest, is operated by Turkish company Al Bayrak, has undergone a significant facelift in recent years to accommodate more ships and containers. The construction of a new seaport outside Mogadishu is also planned as part of a broader maritime infrastructure development plan.
People here are hoping that these developments will not only make trade more efficient, but also help position Somalia as regional trade hub. Hamid Kahir, Africa Matters, Mogadishu, Somalia.
To South Africa now, which has handed the remains of 86 Namibians back to their homeland. Some of these remains were used in so-called scientific experiments designed to prove European racial superiority. Vicky Stark was at the handing over ceremony in Cape Town and filed this report.
South Africa's state-run Iziko museums will not say how many human remains dating back to the colonial era it has in its collection, but confirmed that many were used in unethical race-based research. Thus, this return to Namibia forms part of what the South African government calls ethical stewardship by reburying and repatriating.
What we know for sure is that some of them have been removed forcefully. Some of the ancestral remains have been dug from graves. That is the extent. And then, of course, there has been a lot of torture. So the history is clear. Research was done, provenance research, and it was just inhumane. And this is why today is about restorative justice.
A total of 84 ancestral remains of mostly the Herero, Ovambo, San, Nama and Damara people are being repatriated. The remains of 2 Namibian freedom fighters who died while they were imprisoned on Robben Island by the apartheid regime are also being taken home. Their remains were exhumed from graves in Cape Town. South Africa occupied Namibia for 75 years and fought to suppress its liberation until it gained independence in 1990, when apartheid began being dismantled.
I think this will be a golden opportunity for our family to have chance to visit the grave and have some memories. And so that is the only time we start remembering him, because we will know where he's busy resting, and so we know the family and the ancestors is taking care of him.
Earlier this year, South Africa also repatriated remains to Zimbabwe. South Africa's Arts and Culture Minister says there is more to come.
Because this matter is at the top of the agenda of the president. He wants during his term to make sure that families find closure.
The human remains of the 86 will be transported on a military plane to Namibia. The remains of the 2 political prisoners who died on Robben Island will be buried on the 24th, and a tombstone for them will be unveiled on the 26th of August, which is Heroes' Day in Namibia. Meanwhile, officials are still in discussions with traditional leaders to decide when the 84 will be buried. Vicky Stark, Africa Matters, Cape Town, South Africa.
And finally, we return to Eastern DRC, where farmers in South Kivu are returning to an unlikely solution, fly larvae, as affordable animal feed. It's helping them cut costs and keep livestock healthy as the region recovers from conflict. Rahul Radhakrishnan has more.
It may not appeal to everyone, but fly larvae have brought security to farmers here. This entrepreneur in Bukavu produces about 500 kilograms of larvae a month. And she's doing it in the rebel-held east of DRC that is enduring conflict, insecurity, and a health emergency.
As you can see, here we have waste from potatoes and potato leaves that the larvae are currently decomposing. What is fantastic about the larvae is that after consuming the waste, they leave the residue on top, while the larvae themselves end up underneath.
Black soldier fly larvae are used to produce protein-rich animal feed from organic waste. The conflict reached a head in January last year, disrupting trade routes straining access to services and markets while adding pressure onto farmers already grappling with rising production costs. So processing larvae into feed for fish, poultry, pigs, and dogs offers a locally sourced alternative to imported feed.
This is where our flies live. They are here solely to lay eggs. These flies are not aggressive. They do not bite, transmit diseases, or feed. As you can see, what I'm holding in my hands are egg-laying substrates. They are placed inside the cage so that the flies can lay their eggs in the small cavities of the wooden slots you see here.
The larva's residue is also used as organic fertilizers, allowing farmers to turn waste into both feed and farm supplies.
They are economical because they cost less. We buy 1 kilogram for $1.50. When we buy in larger quantities, the price falls to $90 for 100 kilograms. They are very economical, which is why we choose to use the larva.
Joella hopes to eventually move to industrial-scale production, which would also help in reducing pollution. But for now, the sector remains small. But the impact in Bukavu, at least, has been huge. Rahul Radhakrishnan, Africa Matters.
That's our show this week. Share your thoughts and suggestions about how the DRC can win the fight against Ebola or any other stories you've seen on this episode. You can leave your comments on our Africa Matters YouTube page or on X. Thanks for watching. And it's goodbye from me, Brenda Zeda Radido.